Putting a 6NZ together, homemade tools, stuff. So I didn't record the assembly on this, and I should have. I apologize, but it was just, you know, one of them things you just stop to think and forget to start again, kind of thing. Anyways, this girl is out of the Western Star. It is a silage truck. It's a tri-drive. We use it at the farm. Great truck. What happened is, I think it ran out of oil. No one will tell you that ever, but I think it will. It is. This is the oil pan. Those are chunks of bearing. Furthermore, I didn't save the old bearing. Here's the pistons, but you can see that thing was hotter than, I don't know, than whatever's hot. That piston scored the walls. That shows heat because it's mainly four corners where it started, so the oil heat would have been so hot that it started disagreeing and shit wanted outside. So here's the top end. The crankshaft I put back in the box, but you can tell there is a welded bearing. There is another one that started. You can tell by the dark color of the crank. So yes, you can grind it, but I opted just to get a reman. Send this one away. It's the same thing, except I can get the hell going with it. So, assembly. My fancy engine stand consists of wooden blocks. I assembled the motor actually not like this. I stand it vertical. That way I can use the shyster to pick up the crank and slide it in the back, hanging vertically. It's way safer. You can do it by yourself. You don't nick a bearing. It is just, I don't know. I guess it's my way. And then I assembled the pistons and sleeves all on the vertical position, because you can get openly at both ends of the motor and you're not fighting gravity sinking the pistons in, trying to nick the crank. It's, I don't know, for me it's way safer. So anyways, this is a reman head. The other one had the normal cat syndrome, crack between the valves. Showed some bad antifreeze. There was one cup that wasn't sealing very well. So anyway, this is a reman head. Reman head, it's a bit of work. You gotta do all the plugs, all the sensors, all the foo-foo valves, all the fasteners, the covers, the whatever. So I'm just gonna clean it off now, and then we'll put the cam in. So what I did is I donated come along. So I shortened the chain, put a hook there, and this is my engine tool, because now I can always change the angle, as you can see, or you go the other way. So it saves a lot of time. When you're putting a motor in, you can change the angle, you can do whatever you want. There again, if you work alone, it's way easier, and really it is the cheapest thing you can buy. You can buy them used, you can buy them wherever. But enough of that. Time to get to work. So I will prep this motor and put the spacer plate shim on it, the gasket. I resurfaced this one. It is now flatter than piss on a board. And I did the counter bores because the sleeves were sunk into the block too deep. That happens over time. So then when you use the spacer plate, compress the head gasket down, it doesn't get the quench anymore that it used to could. So you have to bring these back up to height. So anyways, I think they're all cut to 30 thou. And then you put a washer shim below it to make up for the cut. So we should be back to square one. And this little girl should be happy again. When I install sleeves, there's no rhyme or reason, but I like lining everything up the same. See, notice I put a dot here, lined it up with that bolt, so they're all identical. Pistons can go in either way, but there again, I like putting the part numbers all to one side. Yada, 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 yada. Connecting rods, I ended up using all reman recut ones because I can't trust those heated fellas too much. So, yep, just another thing. So here we got the cat head hanging on the shifer. It's new, but they usually cover it in like, I don't know, some oily sap shit, whatever it is. So what I do is I just got solvent in here, and I use this thing, siphon suckering apparatus. Milton makes it, they're cheap, 10 bucks, whatever. And I just wash, because wiping, unless you have the right cloth, doesn't do shit for you. So I just wash it off. So that actually washes dirt down. I'll lift it up, wash the bottom, do some other stuff, and then we will get ready to sink the camshaft in. Got this blown off with solvent, got the cam cleaned up with solvent, so now I'm gonna oil them and then sink the Bismarck. So I like using the forklift and working with gravity and letting the camshaft down slowly. Reason is that thing is way too heavy by yourself to stand there and put it in, like maybe if you're Hans or Franz or whoever, some strong bastard, but I'm not. So anyways, I like using the shyster. I can use the handle right here, lower it. So anyways, I'm gonna oil the shit out of this and then slide her in, then bring the head back level and prepare to install it. So there again, that jug is filled full of mystery juice. It's the greatest concoction on earth. It's 1540 with stabilizer, oil stabilizer from Lucas. It gives you that slimy, sticky string, you know, like when you see some guys eat chicken, strings between their jaws as a rah, 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 rah. Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. It's really sticky. So anyways, I coated the shit out of the head with it and the camshaft. What I like about it is it sprays it on really nice and even. You notice it's not dripping, yet the whole thing is covered. Let me take you close. So you can see it's all lathered with oil, but not heavy enough to drip. If you did this by hand, it'd be a mess, and we probably have like health and safety and all kinds of people over here that want to save ducks. And so here I did the cam, bearings are all done. Then I lubed mainly the springs and valve train and yada 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 yada. Cool, I'm gonna put you back on your post and sink the cam. I can't believe I didn't hit the record button. I had it in slow-mo. Really sucks. Too bad, because anyways, I positioned the forklift directly above slowly let it down, and you can control it with one hand, slide the cam in. None of these sharp lobes, like these edges, you can see them, will score the bearing at all. It is just like the nicest way you could possibly put the camshaft in by yourself. And as you can see, I'll put a bolt in. It turns easy. Anyways, sorry you missed that. So back to this, you've probably seen the equalizer been for 63,000 at Action flipping the head. That's why I really like it. Then I used the blue $3.99 Princess Auto one to do the actual leveling. So then you seen me spray it with brake clean to dry it off, and it is now ready for installation. Camshaft cover is on, and what I did is put a 1/4-inch little bolt in the big washer so the cam can't slide out, because it'll slide out extremely easy. I know it's hard to believe when it takes 5 men and a mule to put it in, but yes, it does happen. Anyways, I will now start prepping the block, and then we will install the head shortly. This guy's been decked, but I don't cut enough. Well, I don't like cutting more than we have to off. So this is where oil return holes are, where those little rings are. And if you see it, they'll actually catch your nail. Now, Cat uses, well, I don't agree with the whole head system, but they use, I'll show you, this light tin piece of shit gasket under this spacer plate. Then they make up for these oil drain holes. You drop them in so they squash the rubber. So what usually happens is a cat will leak oil. You can see it bubble out of these areas. And it's not really the head gasket, it's that stupid thin piece of shit, sorry, gasket below that is doing it. So anyways, what I like to do is on those little rubbers, I put a wee bit of silicone on the bottom just to make up, you know, where it catches these little edges, because I hate when they leak. ITP, which is this, or IPD, sorry, which is this engine rebuild kit. They update the oil return a little different, so they started putting these in. So they slotted the head gasket bigger, as you can see. So these fit in. So what happens now is when you put these in, after it actually funnels the shit in, and then it's a better seal. Now, does that work? I don't know, we'll see. But anyways, this is what I don't like about the Holy Grail 6NZ cat, or pretty much every cat uses these spacer plates, but if you don't shim correctly and you don't plane, you're gonna have issues. Another thing I do is spray the shit out of the gasket with this Permatex copper coat spray gasket. It's basically a sticky stuff, and it gives it a wee bit of a help to not leak. Now, I'm sure there's 22,000 guys that's saying, oh, you can't use that, blah, 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 whatever. I don't care. It's been working for me so far, so I'm just gonna keep doing it. So, anyways, I will put you back on your post and get at her. Well, as you can see, the spacer plate is on. I tried to point out that it's very important to put that O-ring on below the plate, one on top. You've probably seen me putting silicone on top and on the bottom of each and every rubber piece. Notice I don't lay it on like you would toothpaste on a toothbrush, because that's a waste of time and it squeezes everywhere. You just need a film, like I'm talking a hair thickness, as thin as possible. You're squeezing the shit out of it. You see lots of people use silicone everywhere because they love the shit, and they'll put it on like thick as hell on the oil pan rails, say on the front structure rails. And you know what? As soon as you squeeze it, you can't get below it. It fucks up. Oops. It screws up two things. As you tighten it, it'll squeeze the gasket out of place because it acts like a grease. It'll slip and slide. Then it'll curl underneath, fall off over time in big strands, go down to the bottom of the oil pan and plug up the screen on the oil pump pickup. And yes, I've seen it. So I'm scared. I use very little. Anyways, I'm gonna copper coat the head gasket now, put it on, and then we will put the head on. Okay, it looks really pretty, this multicolored unit now. Anyways, the final head gasket is in place. Here are the rubber inserts I talked about. So you can see this little thicker than the head gasket, so it compresses. So the idea is it'll run down, get past the plate into the block, theoretically. Same as the little antifreeze galleries should do the same thing. O-rings in place. We're completely ready. I tapped these holes. You guys didn't see that, but I chased the threads clean. I use lubricant on these threads because these are what I call blind holes. Well, everyone calls them, not just me. What is a blind hole? A blind hole is a hole that there's cast in the bottom. It doesn't go right through. Some are drilled right through, and they actually go into an antifreeze jacket, like a small block Chevy or a big block Chevy. Lots of gas motors go right into the antifreeze jacket. So therefore, you would have to use a sealant on the threads, but we don't have to do that. I'll show you how it's a blind hole. That's why I got the screwdriver and I couldn't concentrate on 5 things at once. So anyways, there, see? Bottom. So they're all bottomed out. So these are all blind holes, so we don't need sealant on the threads. So I like to use a little bit of lubricant so you get a proper torque. So we'll be using new hardware on the bolts, on the head bolts. I'll show you them. I'm gonna take 2 head bolts. That's French for 1 and 2. Take them over, to my cylinder head hanging off the shyster. I'm gonna drop it in this hole and this hole. The reason for that is as I lower the head down towards the block's gonna hit this bolt and it's just gonna gently push it up a bit. But now, before I let it right down, I can guide them in their proper hole, and they will be like two guides. So it'll allow me to land it perfectly down right on the dowels, and it'll seal perfect without doing the wiggle jiggle and disturbing gaskets and waiting for the bang. Anyways, very important, tighten this bung because this is covered by the plate. So if this thing leaks after, oh, bad move. Just tighten it, check it 63 times if you have to. I'm gonna take out my cam anti-faller outer right now. I was way faster on time lapse. Okay, that's out. I should be ready. I'll make room for the shyster and maneuver it in. I'll put you back on the block and you can watch from there. So this is why the shyster and I are buds. We do everything together. It's basically my back. It's kind of based on a Tesla. It's electric. It turns on a dime. I can't say enough about this thing. It's, for whatever reason, it's good in snow and mud. I have no idea why, but it is. I have a propane forklift the other place, and it'll get stuck on a zip tie. But anyways, I don't know if you saw it good enough, but the head landed perfectly. You don't have to do anything. Here it is sitting down. You can see it all around good. So I could bore you to death with torquing 63,000 head bolts and listen to me puff and whatever. Anyways, so what I like to do is shove all the head bolts in, lube them, lube both sides of the washer, so there is no friction when I tighten. And yes, I will use a small little impact that'll go to about 30 foot-pounds. Start in the center and work your way out evenly on both sides. I think the reason for that is if there's a little wave, it flattens it out instead of crimps it. I really don't think it does a whole lot, but that's the proper way to do it. It makes sense if you think about it. So that's what I'm gonna do. Now, there is also 63,000 ways to torque a head. A lot of people go to X amount of foot-pounds and then 120 degrees after. I hate that method. I think it's bullshit because the first one you tighten down has most of the load. The other ones therefore help after that. So what I do is, once I get to my final torque, I'll do them in 3 stages. I'll find out what the torque is on the 120 degrees thereafter, and then set them all. So whether that's 450, 500 pounds, I don't know. We'll see when we get there. That's what they'll all torque to. And I will film this for the people that argue this. I will go back to the center ones after, and you will see that I can tighten them. So that is why I hate the degree method. I just like a torque value. Okay, so I got the bolts ready to go. 16 shorts, 10 longs. Where did I go? I'll show you. It's pretty self-explanatory, but we'll go through it anyways. Yeah, washers are installed. So what I'm gonna do is use fluid film, bit on each side, bit on the threads, each side of the washer. Okay, I'm not gonna bore you with that anymore. Tall. Okay, you can see the distinct difference. The outside two, tall. The very outside ones, see, they're tall. They sit up on a raised. There, that's better. You can see it now. They sit on a raised stall. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That was really impressive counting on my behalf. I don't know if you guys seen that, but yes, I was impressed. Anyways, I'm installing the bolts now. So I torqued all 732,004 bolts to 200 foot-pounds so far. So the next one is 319 is what it's going to work out to. So I'm going to go for 325 just because bigger is better. And then we'll go through them, and then I will show you at the end what the difference is, how loose the center two actually got again, which why I think it's important. I generally also never put the whole motor together. I'll work on the bottom end or the front or rear structure next. So tomorrow I can retorque the head one more time, just because. So anyways, if they do ask for, say 120 degrees of torque, or 60 or whatever, on a 6 bolt or on a 6 flat head, there is 6 sides to each bolt, so that is 60 degrees per flat. These are 12 bolts, so it's 30 degrees per thing. So what you would have to do, if you don't have a degree wheel or a fancy $7 million torque wrench that does it for you, all you have to do is mark one little tooth there, like, and then put a mark here. And you know, say if it was 120, you'd have to go over 4. So you would line that one up with the mark that you just put there. So that's a way of doing degrees without having the tool. There is always, you need the tool. No, you don't. Usually they're in your steel rack or junk bin, or there's a reason for everything. Anyways, I'm gonna torque it and I'll get back to you when we're at the back bunch. Gonna do my gym work now. Okay, I'm out of breath. Thank God you can't see me. Probably sweating like I just come out of a pool. Anyways, did them all to 325. So I set it back up in the center, and now you can see how much it actually loosened. So here I go. I'm gonna try and do this without grunting and making piggish kind of noises, but here we go. There, it went a good, I would say 10-15 degrees. Next. It's not a big deal at all, mainly because I'm in really good shape. Stuff from eating cookies, candies, and stuff. So as you work outward, you will notice the less difference we get. See, I would say that was like 5 to 10 degrees. And pretty soon we'll go a few more and it won't make a difference. Good God. Notice I'm working slowly towards the outside of the motor on both sides. Yes, and I'm out of breath. Quit picking on the fat kid. So anyways, you'll get the drift. I'm gonna finish because I need two hands, otherwise I'm gonna blow something and that's not gonna be pretty for anyone. Next day, and we're gonna retorque these bolts and see if it'll actually take more than what we ended up with last night. Here we go. Don't record my face because I might poop myself. Maybe turn the sound off. Little bit. Do you see that? Not bad, but some. And it's over. Oh, that one went a wee bit. That one not. This one not. Nope, not doing. Do I make it look easy?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not. Turn it off before I start to sweat.
We have to clean these because they're pretty gross, as you can
How
see.
gross?
Disgusting.
Like, yeah, that's not
Like
good.
I wouldn't lick it, so it's not clean
No.
enough. But we're very adamant about putting all the bolts back in the correct places from when we took them off. As you can see, it's on this one too. And we do that so it's not a huge guessing game and we don't have to try to figure it out later, and it saves us a lot of time putting it back together. The aftermath of the big one.
So we use nothing but Greta-approved chemicals around here. Aluminum cleaner, acid-based. It's good because you know it's good because when it says that or this, it's gonna work. Easy off. Also a great thing, household approved. Love it. And this we use for washing, pressure washing all the time. It's called Power Clean. We get it from our local guy. It is the awesomest chemical soap I've ever seen. So what we do is we put it in the weed sprayer. About, I don't know, 20% Smurf piss, I call it. The Power Clean, and the rest water. So we wash the shit out of something, hit it with Power Clean, brush it with the brush, wash it. It's amazing what comes off. So yeah, hats off to that. There's the finished product. It took us, I don't know, what would you say, Shayna?
Probably an hour for both.
To do both pieces, but I mean, they were filthy. And we don't have a steam oven, parts washer
Yeah.
thing. Okay. So for the rear structure, I steal the studs out of the top that hold the J kits on and the rockers, screw them in the bell housing, line them up. then you can guide it and it slides perfectly into place without disturbing this rubber ugly seal. Here we have cat seal installer, part number SRP3 1/4, which means steel room pail 3, I found that, and then the 1/4 is the 1/4 inch keyway I used. Now we'll go fit it and show you how to put it on. So it's a 1/4 inch from, holy, this is tough, from there to the start of the seal. So this face to there, which is why I use 1/4 inch. So now the seal fits in like this, so it bottoms out on the seal, but the blade pushes on this one, so we're good. Now we can put it on here. Front and rear seal is the same on this kitty cat, except different rotation. See, now it fits like this, and I can use the existing bolt to put it in. Let me put you on a post. So it's installed. This is the snap off H bar. It is part number SR2, meaning it was on the steel rack, shelf 2. It's fully adjustable width-wise. I set it with a 3/4 nut, which is 4 5/8 bolt over. So now we just tighten these gently, and I keep a sharp eye on, or a cross eye, or some kind of eye, to see how deep it is, so we can kind of set it equally as it goes in. So we can buy the cat seal installer for $7.3 million and our firstborn, or get this off the shelf. Anyways, now engaging tightening. Top. So I go 1 turn each. 1. Anyways, this is how we keep going till the whole thing is planted. So, awesome. So, we put on the flywheel here with those bolts here. Now, we are gonna roll into top dead center, and on the kitty cat, here, you pull out this 1/4 inch plug. There is a cat part number 6Y73431 minus 17 divided by 3 part number pin that you can buy for, I think it's on sale this week for $1,500, or you can use the 3/8 bolt. So we put slight pressure on it. I'm going to turn from the motor over. It'll fall into place. It'll go dunk. That's when we know number 1 is at top dead center. So I'm gonna roll it over now by hand. Chain up her. Drop the phone. Just gonna put pressure on here till it clicks in, and then we're done. And then we will install the cam gear and time it. Over. Are you ready?
Yep. Oh, it clicked.
It went in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back a little bit. There, it's definitely in.
Is that far enough?
Yep. Now, come over here. Look down injector hole number 1. Can you see the piston at the top? Can you?
Yep.
Compared to another. Can't see that one.
Oh, it doesn't focus very well.
But that one's pretty close to the top.
Yep.
I put in the seal that faces it seals the faceplate to the block, keeps oil from the cam out. So inside there's an O-ring on the flange and there's one on the outer edge. So I use Dawn, because it dawned on me to use it. No, Dawn soap on the outer O-ring, because it helps slide it in without cutting it. And soap doesn't swell the O-ring like oils do. Oil hate O-rings. I hate O-rings. Oil hates O-rings. A lot of stuff hates O-rings. Anyways, so I put a dab of silicone on the other O-ring on the flange just to hold it in place so it doesn't fall out when you stick it in. Not so much because of the seal. Anyways, this is what goes in next. So, dowel. So we put this in, which is a spacer to the front gear. Now it's in like this. So now this one is the retaining plate, so the cam can't go back and forth. We can go ahead and bolt this in. Is there a front and back? No. But I like looking the way it was in. You can usually tell this wearing compared to that wearing, but it looks like it was installed either way at one point in time. So right now it don't matter. So I'm gonna put oil on this face so it's nice and smooth with that one. Bolt it on and we'll go from there. Okay, so installed this, the seal, the cam spacer. Now we gotta time it by, it's already atop this center, which we did with the bolt. Looks like it's 12 o'clock for the dowel pin, so we kind of roughly position it there. Anyways, to time these, there is a mark on the gear for the cam, which you line up with the front housing here, and the mark is on top. And you're supposed to look at it when the peanut cover is off. I'll show you on the thing. But I have to set it now because I want to set this backlash proper afterwards. So I have to do it without the front structure because I need to tighten the bolts after. Anyways, here is the mark I'm telling you about, which I assumed was dead center, but it's not. This is the peanut cover, which looks like a peanut. So here's what I'm doing. I'm measuring from the center of the bolt to the center of the timing mark. Now I find out, oh boy, it's not centered. So I'm going from the center of the engine one bolt to the timing mark. So now I make that mark from the center of the bolt to there, which is here, so I made my mark. So now I'm gonna line up my gear with that one. So set it top dead center, it's all time perfect. I was looking for the perfect backlash, and to me it's about perfect now. But what I like to do is I like to put grease on here, crank it through and see what kind of pattern it washes my grease out. When it comes out on this end, you will actually see how it squashes the grease out, and then you will know if it's good or bad. Squeezing the grease. Rolling up the top dead center, right there. Go push your bolt in. Center. And still top dead center here. Let's take a look at our greasy pattern. You can tell it washed out perfect. This was blob that fell on after, but if you look at these grooves, it's a nice wide pattern. It washed all the way clean. So to me, that is about as nice as we can get it. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm not going to remove the gear and then torque the nuts behind it. And we're ready for the whole front cover. So I have to do this again because I missed it the first time. Injectors. As you roll O-rings on, I find that you spiral them up kind of when they snap into place. So I like to grab a pick, careful not to cut the O-ring, but go underneath and then roll them just like this. And that takes the tension out. So now they're nice and straight instead of like a twist, because as you roll them with your thumb, you twist them. So now it dawned on me to put this on. So why I use this is it is really slippery, smells wonderful, and it's great on the hands. So the big thing really about it is it does not swell O-rings like oil does. Oil hates O-rings unless it's a certain kind of O-ring. They swell up, and if you get held up a little bit or whatever, they'll swell, and as you put it in, you'll cut the O-ring. So now I'm going to show you installation. Here's the horseshoe hold down. I'll take you with me. I'm going to set you here. All the others are in. Now, very important thing to do is center it, because you can put them wherever, and we don't want that. So I like giving them the center. So it's hard to get a good visual of this, but I think there it is. That's not too bad. So now we'll tighten it, and I will let you watch that stupid O-ring. Jesus. Okay. Can you see the O-ring at the bottom? See the red O-ring at the bottom? I'll gently tighten it, and you'll watch it disappear. It'll slide in really nice. And gonzo. Okay, all the others are in. I'm going to torque them, and then we'll go on the next step. Over. The little equalizers on, I call them. They're like a little pedestal, so both valves go down at once. But before we do that, I like to put some wiener slider on everything. So the cam lobes, I already did that one, but I just thought I'd show you again. I do the valve tips, top of the injector. So here, 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 not so much here or there, but right about here, and there, and here, and there, and here, 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 here. Good. Installing the studs, these are Jake head studs. I took them out previously, well obviously they came out the other head. I also use these studs, as you've seen previous, to line up the rear cover. Shove them in there, you can slide it on nice and not disturb stuff. So anyways, now I use the nuts off the top, jam them together, and now you can wheel this guy home. So I know there'll be a lot of people that use vice grips, which is fine, but I don't like it. It chews up the stem, and there is chances of filings and shit falling. Just why give it a head start when you don't have to? So I'll put these in, and then we're going to start putting the rocker assemblies on, but we'll talk about them in a bit. It's kind of a cat weak point. Before you bolt everything up, make sure all the plugs, because this is an exchange head, plugs and fittings go back in their main things. There's a very important one behind the gear. I think I've videoed it and showed you that. Please put that one in, because that's a hell of a mess, and if you don't, you'll cuss, you'll swear, you'll kick your dog, I don't know what you'll do. You'll just be madder than a fat kid in a vegan store. So anyways, this is another really important one, bitch, to get at. It's in the intake, little plug. Those ones, these are fittings. I haven't tightened mine yet, but I'm gonna do that now. I usually set the old head right beside this one, but in this case I took the core back before this guy came home. So that didn't get done. So I'm going by memory. We're screwed. Okay, so anyways, we'll bung this up for now, get this all sorted out, and we'll move on to the next thing. I think somebody installed this. I think it's Iron Man put this in. It's tighter than hell. I'm actually kind of scared of it. And if I strip it, we're screwed. So what I like to do is put a punch in here. And just impact it for a bit. And then you say, good girl. And now, with any luck, it'll come loose. Or break and make me look stupid. Oh my God! Yeah. Do you see how it gave? So I'm gonna come back to this. I'm gonna do a couple other tricks. I'll show you right away. In. So it does, see, we've already stretched it a bit, and that's the worst, because now as you twist, all it does is want to expand and spread it so it gets tighter and tighter. So I'm gonna grab this. Try to do it from as many angles as I can. No excuse for this. Brand new head. WTF.
W.O.W.
Okay. Now, let's try it again without success. Next, we'll do heat, if it doesn't go. I'm just gonna use like 75% of my horsepower. Yes, that worked. None of this shit needs to be that tight, especially a pipe thread. This is NPT, which is National Pipe Thread. It's wedged. The further you go in, it's a taper. They seal. You don't have to tighten the living shit out of them. On tape, sealant tape, whatever you want to call it. I'm right-handed. Here's what I like to do. there is the right way and a wrong way to put it on. If I was to put it on this way, when I'm done and put it in, it wants to unroll the tape as I tighten it. So you got to put it on the right way. So what I do is I stick the index finger or my nose picker finger in the hole of the Teflon tape, grab the edge of the tape. Now I can pull it tight and I could put the brake on this with my thumb. Roll it around nice and tight. And voila. Now it's good. See, it overlapped this way. So as I tighten it, it's not going to loosen off. So remember, right, left. So here we are with the kitty cat. I just set the rocker arms over top. The next thing we got to do is kind of a weird setup because we got to install the jake heads on top. Tighten the rocker shafts down before we can set injectors and valves. I'm just going to tell you, the weak spot on the cat is these shafts and these studs for the jake heads. They will break. There's updated ones, which these aren't. The updated ones, believe it or not, I think they go a little bit narrow, but that's if you're a lot of jaking and whatever, and we're not, with being a farm truck and a tri-drive. But I can show you these studs work loose. Then the shaft will actually wear into the saddles. So this head is redone, so it's perfect, but you can tell at one point in time this guy was loose. You see the mark? Sorry. Where the hell's the cat? Right there. You can tell there's a little edge here and it was wearing. So that's where you know it was loose. So what I like to do is when you tighten these down, tighten them very equally. Like, don't tighten this one and that one, because as you're doing this, you're compressing. So you got to do them evenly, tighten them down, and I like Loctiting the bolts so they're down for good and there to stay. Because if one of these shafts breaks, it'll start missing. Chances are you could lose a tumbler, fall off. Sometimes you break off one of these, not on the injector so much, but mainly these guys. And sometimes I've seen them fall down the oil, and then it's in the pan and it's just a mess and it's just gross. So just prevent it by doing this, and every once in a blue moon, don't be afraid to pull off the valve covers and check these guys. You can check them from the top. I'll put the jake heads on now, and then we'll adjust the whole top end, cover it up, and probably start putting some primer and paint on soon. So the cat's out of the bag, I'm ready to install it. I put on a new clutch, put the front seal on, button it up, all the stuff since you've seen it last. I didn't do a video of installation on the valve covers, any of that stuff, because it's boring. Painted the valve covers, buffed them all pretty. It's gonna be really nice for a week, and then no one cares. New clutch, put on new clutch. Fuel lines, make sure they work. It didn't have a rear lift cover, so I made one because it's a pain in the ass without it. The wiring harness, very important. I do it now because it's a lot easier to get at stuff. Tie them up proper. I use dielectric grease on all the plugins up there. They're everywhere, right here. Mainly because sometimes it's a real bitch to get these out of the holder. You can unclip them, but they're just seasoned, weathered in there like, Jesus, it's like trying to pry a fat kid off a cookie. But it's just terrible. So to prevent it, because probably the next guy in here will be me for who knows what. Yes, so engine vent tube is on. That's oil field, that's a rota. It cuts the air if it senses over revving. Don't really need it in places, but you know what? Everything here has it in Alberta, so we're putting it back on. Fuel and oil, I will bleed it and show you a way to do it that works for me before we put it in. The start is ready. We washed the shit out of the frame rails. Hasn't been like this since 2002 when it rolled off the assembly line. Put a new input shaft in, bearing, fork and bushings I didn't do because they were like brand new. So why? I'll keep that for something that needs it one day. I might address some heater hoses, but they all look pretty good. But why wouldn't you do it now when you can get at stuff? The other thing is I lubed the shit out of the input shaft so it slides in the clutch very nice. Yeah, I will probably prop this thing up somewhere and try and record what is going on. Forgot to tell you, I leave the exhaust manifold off for a reason, because I can reach behind here and play with some ignorant bell housing bolts. When the time comes, it's not a bad job to wiggle the exhaust manifold in after. For those who do, it should be done before you put the thermostat housing in, but you can get around it by not putting the studs in first, because the studs will be out to here and you can't get the manifold on. So what I'll do when I put the exhaust manifold on is line it up, put a couple little bolts in just to hold it in place, and then go ahead and put all the studs in place. Spacers, yada, 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 yada. Awesome. So preparing the shyster for the cat lift. I usually keep these little chains and stuff on here, and a magnet. Sometimes you lift a piece of sheet metal, there's no way to chain it or whatever, so use this Prince Auto magnet. It's pretty cool. This hook I utilize for almost everything, and I always used one fork, and I decided, why don't I use two? You're not supposed to cut a hole in the forks, but I did. Here is my bolts. Put that in here. Use my little homemade engine equalizer, and see you in a bit. So this is how I keep a cat in suspense. I use my modified come along. As you can see, it hooks to a swivel up there. I put a hook at both ends on the chain. So now to adjust the angle, Jesus, I don't know how the hell to show you this by myself, but maybe I'll prop it. Bear with me. Okay, I've got you propped. Now you'll see that by doing this, I'm changing the angle. Half up or half down, so change the way, go the opposite way. You get the picture. Now, on this side, God, she's pretty. This little come along, I tie the side of the motor to control this one. So once I'm in and my bell housing bolts don't quite line up, instead of having 16 guys with pry bars and prying everything that you break off and have to order later, it's way easier to do the come along. You set it where you want it, away you go. I also put 6-inch or 8, whatever I can find, long dowel bolts through a couple of bell housing bolts. Start them in the bell housing when I'm about that far away, just as a guide to slide it in. It's another thing that's way easier when you're by yourself. W.O.W. I told Shayna yesterday we should charge the shyster because it's probably going to die mid-stroke putting the engine in. And think you'd learn, right? So the kitty cat just got home. The forklift died, which I showed you. Then my phone died. It's been a great day. Anyway, so I'm back in action. I wiggled it a little bit. Make sure the transmission's in gear. You put some of these bolts in. Crank it a little bit. You'll feel the clutch blind lock in place. It'll sound like dunk. And then you give her a wiggle like this and it'll slide a little bit. Then before you panic and shove it in, go underneath, stick your arm or your eyes and hand, I guess, in the inspection hole in the bottom of the bell housing first. Check on the claw around the release bearing if it's touching the clutch housing. If it is, put a pair of pliers on the shaft and crank it so it goes around the clutch. And if you even give it a little more, a lot of times it'll just pull the motor towards the bell housing and suck it all the way in, which is what happened to me on this one. It went slicker than whatever the hell is slick. It was awesome. So I just finished bolting the horseshoe mount on. Now I'm gonna let the shyster down, get rid of it, plumb it up, put the pan on. Now the reason I don't put the pan on is then I can clear this cross member and all the other horse shit involved. The pan, wrestling it underneath isn't that bad. The first thing you got to do is make room, is put a jack from the frame to the ground so you get clearance between the axle and the block. Once you have that, then you can wiggle that oil pan in. So, meanwhile, I guess I will go wash some shit off. I need to clean the pan yet, haven't done that, so I'll wash, clean the pan out, install the pan, plumb it up, and with any luck, in a couple hours, she's gonna make fire. Guys are in for a real treat today. We're on board the shyster. Engaging power up engaged. Turning key on, listening for clicks. 2 clicks. Yes, sir. Engaging tilt back. Yeah, baby. Reverse. Look out, Ma, she's backing up. And the shyster has done another one. Backing up, backing up. No big deal. Meow. I know you guys are really lucky, fortunate to have driven in the shyster. Here's a Pete. It's got something exhaust issue. I drove it the other day and I heard a like under acceleration, which to me sounded like exhaust. So he's next, but we'll get this gem going. Right now we're missing a radiator and stuff, balancer. I got a couple of top bell housing bolts to do. The bottom's all buttoned up. Other than that, so I'll do those rear bell housing bolts first. Tie up all the little loose ends. Do the clutch linkage, oil pan, and then I will do the exhaust, turbo. Then I'll bolt the front accessory shit on. Then comes the rad structure, and then becomes time for liquids, fuel, and water antifreeze. I usually run them with straight water first in case there's any leaks or whatever. Usually isn't, and then it's just a pain in the ass, but you know what, in nothing else, it's a flush. So if you put straight antifreeze in, your chances for a leak are quite a bit higher just because that's how luck has it. So I prefer water, then dump half of it out or all of it out because probably 2-3 gallons will remain in it. Then top it off with antifreeze and happy-go-lucky. So the starter is running good. So I went to do some other maintenance. The rear diff, front rear diff, leaked where it bolts to the banjo. So I went to pull it apart, reseal it, to find stuff. Unless there was somebody drilling in there, I'm not sure what happened. Anyway, I decided to take the diff completely out and disable it. I completely dismantled it and then put it back together to find not much wrong. There's a bit of play in the spiders, so this truck didn't come to us new, so those filings could have been from a piled bearing from who knows what before, but we don't know that, so we will investigate that further, I guess. I didn't want to take the chance, you know, to run it as is, and it turns out it was okay. For those who aren't familiar with it, there's two diffs in a power divider. There is a diff in here, which you will see on the fast video when I put it all together, and there's a diff here. So what that means is this spline drives the axle behind us, so it doesn't have to. So if it finds it easier to turn this axle, it'll just turn this axle. So this guy, if you apply air in there, it locks the fork, so now this shaft is a dead lock. You'll see the pieces. So this is a double locker, which you can tell. So this diff is now a freewheeler, but if you blow air in him, it pushes this cup into place and locks the diff. So that's what they call a double locker. Anyway, you don't need to know all that shit. Maybe you do. If you do, just, I guess, drop a thing and we'll go through it. There was a few little tricks that you do. I don't know if you've seen me, the yoke. For one, to get the seal off, the easiest way to do it without losing your cool and beating the shit out of whatever pets you have and taking your aggression out on everything, I grab a sharp little chisel and chisel marks in there. So what that does, it actually spreads the speedy sleeve open. So then you can get below it with a pry bar and pry it off, and it'll actually come off in one piece. It doesn't look like the dog chewed on it for 17 days. So try that. The other one is just, you can get below it with a little chisel, below the lip, to get it on. Now, to install them, I lay the yoke, or the speedy sleeve, face down like so, set the yoke in nicely, shove this through the yoke, and then I hit it dead center. And as long as your table is smooth and a nice surface, so what I do is go directly above the leg where it doesn't vibrate and knocks all your tools and shit off. It doesn't take much, you can pound it. Now, I never lube them because that's just asking for trouble. If somebody beat the yoke up before, I'll actually use a bit of silicone to seal it, because it depends who took a speedy sleeve off in their life. If they used a torch and nicked the yoke, you can repair it just by a bit of silicone as long as the surface is smooth. Now, to install that seal, I simply use the spacer washer, which fits snugly in the seal lip. Then I simply set the yoke on top. It'll grab the spline a little bit. Now, I shove this back in the yoke, hit it dead center, and it seats the seal perfectly without any $17.8 million specialty tools. You'll see that all in the video. So now I'm gonna replace the lockup sensor, which obviously does not work. And there's some temp sensors on the diffs I'm gonna contend with, but I'll change this one for now and get her wiggled in there. There's one more thing I should mention. To install these diffs, it can be a pain in the ass. You can get them in perfectly till the last inch or whatever, and you don't know what the hell's going on. Everything's mad. You've chucked every wrench you own out the door and killed your dog with one, and who knows what the hell happened. Actually, you can see it on this one. It's been scarred once. So what happens anyway is the diff comes in the back of the housing. These actually sit on seats, so they're supported. So it doesn't just rely on studs, these sit on supports. Now these are really sharp little edges. So what you'll see me do right away is I grab a grinder with the flapper disc and taper them a little more. So then they seat really easy and nice, and you don't have to hold your tongue right. You can even chew gum while you put it in. That's how terrific that is. But yeah, you can tell down here there's a burr too. And that's just gonna give you frustrations. So just deal with it now and you'll be happy you did. And then when you go to install it, put grease on here, on all these surfaces, so it helps to slide it in. There's nothing like good old wiener slider for that stuff. It's one thing I should tell you now, and I may as well video it. You cannot install this diff because this guy hits the housing. This is the diff lock, or the double locker as they would call it. So you have to physically engage it. So now to do that is my special tool out of an intake manifold on a 6.5 Chevy. It's a metric stud. So you take the air fitting out. Inside there is threads. So you just simply thread this in, and what you'll do, you'll see it engage this. Now you see we have clearance and it's locked. So just a note for yourself, you're putting it in and you're yelling and screaming and it's just one of them days. Your wrenches are taking a beating and whatever. Just remember this, do this. Now the only thing that's bad is I kept this pretty long, but whatever, it works. And I also decide never to take the air pots completely off, because I hate wrestling with the slack adjuster pins. They always see it's a pain in the ass. So I just simply unbolt them like this and throw them to the side, because you can do whatever you want with the spot when you put it in. So there is the seats I was talking about. You can clearly see where it's at on that shiny spot. So that's all around. Oh, there's kind of a burr there, see that? So anyway, that's what I'm going to do, is I need to clean this shit up now. Get ready for the install, because there is nothing better than doing that below a hoist. And yeah. Oh well, I'll put you on a time-lapse video, that way you can't hear me swear. So here's the flapper disc I'm going to use to work this edge over. I think they call it a flapper disc mainly because of the way it is. It's got flaps like this, see? And it's a disc, flapper disc. Pretty damn good. Where the hell were they when they come up with flashlight? I've never seen a flashlight flash. It's a shining light. That's what it should have been called. This guy makes sense. Flapper disc, perfect. That's just common sense. But a flashlight, really? Or, yeah, I don't know, we go on for hours with this, but I got shit to do. Okay, I'm gonna show you. This finger has really worked. That's why I've been putting it to the side. It's sore as hell. I can feel my heartbeat in it. Anyways, that's cool. So you can tell this edge screwed. I can hook my nail on it. Well, that's gonna give me nothing but grief. Same as this. See, you can tell all the practice here. Like, definitely wasn't the first time this diff was out. Anyway, it's all beat to shit. So it's a sharp, shitty little edge. So I'm gonna smooth them off also, and you will see that it's gonna make for the smoothest bloody install since, I don't know, since Jesus got his first back brace on his handle. That's quite a while ago. So anyway, I'm pretty confident after I flap the shit out of this that it's gonna go in slicker than a finger up a nostril, but time will tell. Okay, I got the diff shoved underneath, everything's clean, everything is greased. I greased the input splines, greased the diff where it slides on the collar. I'm not siliconing nothing till I get within 6 inches, because you never know, otherwise the silicone hardens and who knows what the hell happens. I didn't replace the filter, put the guard on yet, because I knew it would get damaged. So I'll do that once the diff is in. I'll see if I can plant the phone somewhere so you can see what's going on. I'm by myself on this one, so let's see what happens. Okay, so that was pretty slow. I got about a 2-inch gap, 3 at the bottom. It's time to put silicone in there and send the bitch home. Okay, it's in. We got to Teflon all the bolts because they go straight in the oil jacket.